Hello, so today I wanted to go over set 16 a little bit more. Set 16 is a new set of TFT that's going to be launching on December 3rd, but it's actually going to be in PBE tomorrow, which means we can get some hands-on experience and start learning about the set ahead of time. What I want to talk about was the main mechanic of the set, which is unlocking units. There are basically these 40 extra units that have particular unlock conditions, which then allows you to play with this larger pool or these extra units, which will then be granted in your next shop if you unlock them. I want to talk a little bit about them, introduce them all, and discuss how the conditions kind of might mesh with different strategies in the game. If you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. We're going to be doing lots of set 16 content. With PBE, I'm going to be making lots of PBE related guides. And then, of course, when the set launched on December 3rd, we're going to go through all the important guides, econ, how to play forecast, how to play reroll, or an artifacts, everything. So if you're looking forward to that and you want to try out set 16, make sure to like and subscribe. Additionally, I'll be doing viewer lobbies, but I'll mention more of that in like a post or tomorrow when we have more information. Let's go through them. So I'm going to go through them by cost, and these are all the unlocked units. Of course, there are the regular units in the game. We kind of did a brief trait and everything overview yesterday, but we're going to break down each of these units and talk a little bit about them, specifically the unlocked ones. So Bard, his unlock condition. So if you read on this website, it's kind of formatted where right after their name, it shows what the unlock condition is. With Bard, you want to reroll 4 times before stage 2 carousel. Bard seems like a reroll enabler and something you obviously want to be playing with low cost units. So specifically with Bard, rerolling 4 times before stage 2 means that you're investing around 8 gold before the first carousel of the game. That is very early in the game, and usually you want to be building your bank and establishing a really large amount of interest at that point. So this seems very difficult in terms of like just doing this like for no reason, if that makes sense. So we're hoping that Bard really compensates for that, which he does. He has the Caretaker synergy, which gives you extra rerolls, as well as gives you copies of random units from Runeterra. I don't know what the rules are for the random units that you get for winning player combats, but that can make a big difference on whether Bard could be maybe more of a tempo unit or strictly a reroll unit. However, with Bard's kit, if you read his kit, he gets extra meeps for 3-starring units. So I imagine Bard's going to work more along the lines of like a 1-cost reroll that you're going to lose streak with, generate a huge amount of rerolls, and then use those other units, the random drops, to cap your board and reestablish your econ a little bit later after first hitting some of those boards. So I would imagine good with like Yordles, for example. They seem pretty good with reroll. Maybe like the Noxus, where there might be some reroll potential there to like 3-star units to power up your Atacon, stuff like that. Next we have Graves. This one seems very tied in with Twisted Fate. Unlock potential, obviously field a Twisted Fate with 2 items in combat. Twisted Fate is another Bilgewater unit, so there is a team synergy there. But also Graves' kit really wants him to be like on a Twisted Fate style of board, so there might be like a Twisted Fate Graves reroll board, because as you can see, he has the extra abilities, Partners in Crime later on, where he kind of powers up the Twisted Fate, and they both gain bonuses depending on like what's going on between the 2 units. So I think that this is a unit that, you know, you wouldn't really want to unlock unless you're playing Twisted Fate. Then obviously the unlock condition makes sense. It's tied to having the Twisted Fate in the first place. I would just be careful if you don't want to unlock Graves, maybe, or you don't want to play around Bilgewater. It might not be like a good idea maybe to play around Twisted Fate in the early game. But I think that, you know, flexibility in playing what you have is going to be a big theme in this set, and a lot of times I think you're going to be rewarded for playing the units that you have, itemizing them, because it's going to unlock and allow you to snowball throughout your early game to mid game to late game, if that makes sense. Next you have Oriana. Unlock 3 Piltover. She's just adding to that Piltover train, and Piltover has its own things where it's like you have upgrades and like summons and whatnot. So she's just like an extra unit that you would get if you're already trying to play with a Piltover style opener. Next we have Poppy. There's a lot of units like this that I think are used to promote a little bit of flexibility. They have 3 active traits, and they have these unlock conditions, that is like fielding this or this, right? So for example, Poppy is a Yordle Demacian as well as a Juggernaut, which is one of the frontline synergies, and you would unlock Poppy by fielding Demacia or Yordle with 2 items in combat. It's kind of like an idea of, if you already have these units, this is a way that you can just slot in this unit, and with 3 traits, 3 synergies, makes it really flexible, really easy to slot in and potentially make use of those synergies in order to make your board a little bit stronger, She's more like a tank. It seems like a previous version of Poppy, but she also, instead of doing like a huge amount of damage, she does grant extra shielding to your allies, so she has a bit of utility aspect, which could make her really useful in those early mid-game rounds. Next, we have Tryndamere. Tryndamere, Field and Ash with 2 items, similar to how we saw before. Freljord itself seems like a very interesting trait in the way that it's designed. A lot of the units kind of have these effects, right? If you read Tryndamere's effect, he has a part where he ignores armor against chilled enemies. Well, does Tryndamere himself chill? No. Well, how do I get the chill activated? Well, other units like Ash, for example, applies chill. So a lot of Freljord is you'll have half the units or a good portion of the units that do X effect if a unit is chilled, and then the other half of the Freljord units will be like, this effect chills units. And there's kind of like this team synergy that makes it feel like, you know, with Freljord you want to at least have one of each type of Freljord unit, if that makes sense. One that applies the chill and one that benefits off the chill. So the unlock condition for Tryndamere makes sense. Like, a lot of his power budget and skill whatever will be applying to doing like extra chill stuff. There could also be a reroll line, specifically like when you have units where they unlock with one other unit. So in this case, Field and Ash with 2 items in combat, he has a similar effect like Graves. He has bonus damage or bonus effects that deal with the Ash, where they both like make themselves stronger. In addition to that Freljord chill effect, he also has like this blood sword bond, excuse me, where there might be a reroll potential here, or at least like a power spike that you get for unlocking and playing the units. Lastly, for the 2 costs, we get to Yorick. Yorick you unlock with a 2-star Viego with 2 items in combat. Now, Yorick is a Warden, which is one of the frontline synergies, but also Shadow Isles. Shadow Isles basically scales really well off of just like playing it. This feels like more of a committable line of like all the flexible lines and all of that, because you basically earn these souls. It's like a new form of currency. I always make the joke of like Boko dollars, right? So you have like this new currency for this particular trait. They gain attack damage and ability power, and they scale with these souls. A lot of the units themselves scale off the souls, so it feels like you want to really invest into just playing Shadow Isles if you're playing Shadow Isles from early game, or you want to have like a really good early game spot in order to play that particular synergy. So here, a 2-star Viego is a 1-cost unit, so it makes a lot of sense, right? If you hit 2-star Viego early, that kind of starts the Shadow Isles trend. You could basically itemize him, set up the generating of all of this extra soul. You get the Yorick, you instantly get to 2 Shadow Isle, you don't have to worry about getting the other units, and then the other unlocks, which we'll see later, are all related to like having enough souls, and they all kind of scale with these souls for Shadow Isle. So it feels like, I don't know if it's necessarily a reroll specific line or tempo related line, but it feels like this is one of those lines where you want to have the units early, and that's kind of how the unlocks kind of work. It's like you unlock the next unit, then you unlock the next unit, and the next unit, and you slowly scale up and gain more and more of these souls until you hit like the Kingpin Giga Boss unit for the Shadow Isles, which is the Thresh, which needs a huge amount of souls in order to get that unit active. Anyways, those are all of the 2-cost units. Now let's go through the 3-cost units. So I'm just going to put them on the field. What you'll notice, which we'll talk about later, is that there's a lot more 4 and 5 costs, kind of leaning into that flex play or these higher tier like achievable units that you want to hit that might be a little bit more potent or powerful. But of course, there are some of the lower cost unlocks, which is what we're talking about right now. Darius basically you unlock by having a Draven, so it kind of like works hand in hand, similar to the other ones. Draven is a 3-cost unit, however, so it's not like you're gonna get a 3-cost and become really strong early, but if you have a nice Draven opener, you can really steamroll with the Noxious trait. Noxious also works really well, like because it's basically like the dedicated summon trait, but it works, how do I phrase it? It works by, like getting like summoning after doing damage, if that makes sense, right? Like after the enemy team lost 15% of their health, you summon Otacon, right? Usually it's like, you know, more of a defensive thing that you get this summon. It's more of like a steamroll, like damage dealing trait, which is a little bit of a new dynamic for some of these traits. So it makes a lot of sense, you know, if you hit the if you hit Draven early, all of a sudden you get a if you hit Draven early, get the gold drop, hit the Darius, scale up, start to steamroll, do a lot of damage. Summon trait usually really good for tempo and playing really aggressive, and then depending on how the units are balanced, it might end up being a, like, you know, a reroll type of board where you reroll Draven, Darius, LeBlanc, like all the 3 costs, or it might be something that you're just trying to tempo play around some of the higher cost units. Next we have Gwen. Gwen collect 20 souls, and then she scales with souls, right? The snips and how she works in that regard. So similar with the other Shadow Isles unit, you're basically trying to like hit the early Shadow Isles, generate the souls, get more active, generate more souls by getting more active, and then basically allow them to scale and do extra damage until you cash out enough souls to get to your Thresh. Next we have Kennen. Kennen's another 3 trait unit, which we were talking about before, so really great. 8 star levels of Ionia, Yordle, or Defender, so he seems more of like if you're committing to any one of those lines, you can get this extra unit with 3 traits. So often you're going to either have Ionia or Yordle active, maybe both of them, but in most cases one or the other. Get a bunch of star levels on one of those traits, and then he can activate Defender, being a frontline synergy that can help out your entire board. He also has a little bit of like a team buff effect, I believe, right? Like in the last part of his kit. Oh no, it just has a stun. Yeah. Excuse me, it just has stuns. My bad, wrong unit. Just has stuns, not team-wide effects. Then we have Kabuko and Yumi. So Kabuko and Yumi, another 3 synergy unit, which has the same type of effect of 6 star levels of Brawler, Yordle, or Invoker. So any one of his synergies, if you have star levels in it, he will just be able to get unlocked, and then you could basically use him to continue on that path of playing around those synergies. Basically, he has this passive with Yumi. She alternates between healing and granting attack speed, so this works with allies, so it has a little bit of a team-wide effect, which is pretty nice, especially since he's a 3 trait unit. Finally, we have LeBlanc, another Noxus unit. Field a Scion with 2 items in combat. Scion is a 1-cost unit, if I'm not mistaken, but I should double check just so I don't... Oh no, he's a 2-cost, excuse me. So Scion, 2-cost unit. If you summon this, if you play your Scion 2 items in combat, then you would summon the LeBlanc. Fits with the similar Noxus, where you can maybe hit like those higher thresholds, power up your Atacon, be a little bit stronger by just getting the early unlocks and just being able to scale off of that. Anyways, those are the low cost unlocks. Now we're going to go through all of the 4 costs. These are the ones that I personally am a little bit interested in. It's hard to say exactly how strong any one particular unit is, but the way the unlocks work of you unlock the unit and then you'll see it in your next shop, it feels like you might very well be able to play around some of these 4 costs a little bit more easily, in the sense that you can unlock them and then play around that unit. Usually 4 costs, stabilizing around 1 copy of the unit is particularly potent or particularly important, so I'm really curious to see the implementation of how easy it is to stabilize or play around the unlocked 4 costs. Obviously the 2 costs and the 3 costs, it makes sense in the regards of like, you know, playing it as like either a tempo or potentially a reroll line, but if you're structuring your game plan around specifically carrying one of these units, or specifically making one of these units your tanks, it can really have like a interesting dynamic to the way set 16 is approached, which we won't know until we have some more practical hands-on experience, which will start tomorrow. But either way, let's go through them and their unlock conditions. Rift Herald, if you have Void active for 8-player combats, you get this unit. He seems like more of a frontline style bruiser, not really a carry, like not like his like, I'm not sure how much his scaling is going to be with the HP, especially since you're playing Void and not as much Bruiser. There might be a condition where you play Void up until you hit Rift Herald, and then you switch over to playing Bruiser because he has better HP scaling, and the Void isn't really going to help him out in that regard. It's hard to say exactly like what the line is to play around Rift Herald, but decent frontline unit, I would suppose. Gets durability as well, which means that building armor would make a lot of sense because HP from Bruiser, durability from Kit. Anyway, Singed unlock is take 30 damage and 4 Zonites or Juggernauts. So I'm assuming you're either playing 4 Zon or Juggernaut. And then these are separate conditions, I believe. I don't think you have to take 30 damage while having 4 Zonites or Juggernauts. It's more so like if you've taken 30 damage and then you have 4 Zonites on your board. If it's like both concurrent, we'll figure that out later. I'm unsure because I haven't seen or played it yet. But anyways, he basically runs around, leaves a poison trail, you know, classic, like, whatever, Singe stuff, excuse me. And then, he also gets extra armor and magic resist, which might make him a little bit of a nuisance. And then also, with Zon, you also get those extra bonuses of more durability, so he can be a really hard unit to deal with, obviously, being frontline synergy, being able to get durability from his, trait, and then also getting armor from his active could be a little bit of a tanky unit, and running around obviously being a nuisance and causing like AoE damage. A lot of times these units are also really good with like scaling AP in that sense, because they're just like constantly just making a mess on the board, similar to like low cost versions of him in the past. Next we have Skarner. So Skarner is Ixtal, field a non-tank with Gargoyle Stoneplate in combat, so this one seems like a little bit of a stranger situation, but also does not seem to be that difficult of an unlock potential. Obviously, I'm not sure how strong or how broken he will be, but his passive is that he gives all allies armor, which is pretty nice, right? 10 armor is 10 armor, so that is a team-wide buff, and also a 4-cost tank, which usually will have a little bit better stats than other units. A non-tank with a Gargoyle Stoneplate without a level requirement makes me feel like Skarner is going to be a really popular choice to spike mid-game. Like, I can imagine, like, I don't know if there is going to be some sort of criteria, because I look at this and I think to myself, yeah, I'll just do this on stage 2 and I'll just get a Skarner like right away. Or I don't know if how the unlock works, if they're gonna like, if it's postponed or if you actually get it like early or whatever. So we'll see. But this one just seems like a really nice, simple type of unlock condition. So probably will be really popular in my opinion. Next we have Vigar or Vagar, depending on how you say it. Google says it's Vigar, people say it's Vagar. I just say both. So, you know, expect this set whenever there's a Vigar or Vagar in the set. You'll always hear me flip-flopping around it because it's like both I assume are okay. But either way, unlock potential, field a unit with 2 Rabadon's death caps in combat. This unlock condition seems a little bit awkward. 2 Rabadons is a little bit awkward of an itemization, especially like based on the synergies. Usually you want to make items that work on a either want to work in a flexible way or want to not make use of one particular stat, right? Like, you don't want to make 2 Rabadons. You would rather make a dual gauntlet or a Rabadons or something that scales either base AP, damage amp, and crit, because those multiplicative effects are going to be a lot stronger. So making double Rabadons, besides like particular augments like those prismatics where they just give you a bunch of rods, I think is going to be very difficult. Additionally, the way item drops work, you're less likely to get drops of the same component. That's just how it works mathematically. So unless you get this via some other augment or Pandoras, I think this unit's going to be a little bit harder to get out or a little bit more situational. And then also the Rabadons, I don't even think works with like a Arcanist type of unit because they gain AP. So the Rabadons are going to feel a little bit more wasted. Now, obviously, Vigar gets the passive with more ability power from all sources, but that being said, you still want to give him mana gen and probably some sort of crit or damage amp scaling. You wouldn't want to give him like mana gen double Rabadons. I don't think that's going to be like Bis Vigar. That's usually not how that works. So we'll see exactly how it is. But also he has a scaling effect where he gets extra ability power. So if you're able to get him out early, I can imagine this being a really steamrolling type of unit, right? If you have like one of those early Pandoras, this might be like an outlet to Pandoras and then reroll those items maybe later. If you maybe reroll one of the Rabadons that you make into like a tank item or something like that, like I can see some situations where that might be a viable strategy. But of course, we don't know exactly how it's implemented and how strong the units are individually, so we will see when it's actually the set is live and we can play it. Of course, Warwick, 2-star Jinx, 2-star Vi. Now, I believe Jinx and Vi are both Zon units, which gives you a little bit of a team synergy that you can play around, right? Jinx, I'll just throw them out, right? Has Zon and Gunslinger, and then Vi has Zon and like some sort of frontline trait, whatever. So you're able to get the Warwick out. His kit kind of like, again, when they're naming specific units in the unlock condition, usually there's a little bit of an incentive to play those units in the unlock condition. So with Warwick, he gets like takedowns with his effect. He allows Jinx and Vi to gain extra attack speed, which can work really well. You can have them as like a little trio package of Zon units. Activate Zon with 3 Zon, and then I believe they call it yeah, it's just called Zon here. Activate 3 Zon and then maybe build around them. Warwick especially seems a little bit of a like there's a lot of parts of Warwick's kit that seem really nice, right? Gains attack speed on his active, Omnivamp, increased move speed, which is really nice on melee style carries. It allows him to like really snap to new enemies instead of like wandering around after killing somebody. And then also he scales that all of his auto attacks do bonus physical damage. So I can see Warwick being really good with like attack speed and AD, and with the extra Omnivamp that he gets from his kit, you might not have to build deep into Omnivamp for him. Also gets attack speed from Quick Striker, which is nice. So I feel like this unit individually might be a little bit of a nuisance or a little bit of a menace. And then also the fact that you can buff the other units makes him feel like he has like really good potential there. Yone's a little bit awkward of an unlock. you need a 3-star Yasuo to unlock him. Now, obviously, the Yone probably will do really well, has AP, AD scaling, really flexible itemizations, I'm assuming. I'm assuming also he's going to be similar in implementation of, like, how he is in the current set. So if you played around Yone as a 5 cost, he might just be a little bit weaker as a 4 cost unit, but then also just has, like, this extra effects of maybe, like, doing more AoE, because he has, like, a 3 hex, striking many enemies, doing a bunch of, like, AD, AP. I'm assuming attack speed will also be good on him. Yasuo is a little bit hard to 3-star because he is a 2-cost unit, so he's not like a 1 cost that you can kind of get for free, like something like Worth the Wait or anything like that. But also he also has like these Blade Brothers where Yasuo and Yone will work together a little bit, which is really nice. So obviously if you're playing around Yasuo and you're playing like double melee or double damage dealer, they share synergies. They're both Ionia Slayer. This can be a very easy comp to play, just like off of a Yasuo reroll opener, and then you would just basically unlock the Yone, power up both the units, and you have a dual carry instantly set up as long as you have the items to support the both of them. Next, we have Diana. Diana is a Targon unit. Build a 2-star Leona with 3 items in combat. And then obviously because you're mentioning a specific unit, she's going to have a little bit of like an interaction with Leona. Her passive ability damage from your strongest Leona and strongest Diana marks enemies, reducing their damage by 10%. Leona is also, a Targon unit. Targon are these like super strong individual units that they don't have any traits, but they kind of have like little interactions here or there. So obviously the Diana, if you're playing her and you're playing with the Leona, they kind of come like a little bit of a package deal as well. Next we have Fizz. This is going to be the resident piss off everybody unit, or aka the Akali. For this enemy within 4 hexes, this is going to be like your assassin killing the backline type of unit. Unlocked by fielding 5 Yordles or Bilgewater units and being level 7. So of course, this can work really well with Bilgewater lines or Yordle lines. You're probably going to want to play some of those traits because those are the 2 active traits for the Fizz. So obviously it makes sense. And of course, just be careful, right? Very low mana, by the way. Very low mana. Like I'm seeing 20 mana. 4 hexes. Now the damage itself doesn't seem that high, right? It's like, but it's AoE, so I'm assuming the Fizz is going to be less of like a one-shot the backline instantly and more of like a jump around and do a bunch of damage. He also doesn't have an effect like Akali where he like redoes the damage onto prior marked enemies or anything like that. So I don't think it's going to be that crazy. Like I don't think he's going to be able to directly like one tap a backline unit, but he will be like a big nuisance of just jumping around constantly, because with 20 mana, that means he's going to cast very frequently. Very, very frequently. It's a very low mana threshold. Next we have Kai'Sa. So Kai'Sa, field a long shot with 3 items in combat and be level 8. So obviously, she has the extra effects of being able to have different abilities if she has attack damage or ability power being higher. I'm not sure exactly what the 2 abilities are. It's not fully clear on early information, so we'll see in-game. But of course, if you're playing around long shot or you're playing around like an early game carry, you can unlock the Kai'Sa and then like pivot and make her the stronger unit. Her being able to be itemized with both AP or AD and change her ability could also make her a really flexible option as a really easy 4 cost you can just kind of play around. Next we have Kalista. So Kalista, unlock potential is 75 souls. This is the Shadow Isles trait, and then she obviously scales with the souls. This is what I was saying before. Shadow Isles feels like more of like a committable line. You start it with a Viego 2, and then you slowly accumulate the souls, unlock the units, get more souls because you scale the souls as you scale up the trait of Shadow Isles, and then work towards like getting that Thresh, and that's like kind of your win condition or your game plan for much of the game. Then we have, I'll put the 2 Shurima units together. We have Nasus and Renekton. So Nasus, more of a tank, basically like he steals health and then gets armor and magic. This is very similar to how he was in set, I believe it's set 12, right? Set 12 was when they had the Pyro Nasus that just kind of got really big and stole a bunch of HP. So we have that one. I have a really funny clip with Talisman of Ascension Nasus where I basically was like winning the game off of that. So that might be a thing this set. And then Renekton, more of a damage dealer, right? Both of these have unlock conditions tied to Azir. Azir is a 5 cost. So these units, although being 4 cost, they're more towards like a high cap board. And you need to have either early Azir from like hitting it, either via an augment or by other means, or like, you know, you won't be able to play these. And they also involve win streak or lose streak with the Azir, so a lot of times it might be hard to get both of them. It might be like you have to kind of pick one, and a lot of times it might be like spot dependent, if that makes sense. Lastly, we have Nidalee. So Nidalee, field 2 2-star Nikos in combat, and then obviously Nidalee, we talked about her yesterday, but Huntress, right? When your strongest Nico is alive, your strongest Nidalee is untargetable. This feels like more of a unit that you're going to have as a damage dealer after rolling for or trying to find a Nico 3. Nico is a frontline unit this set, and she is a 2 cost. Now, obviously, you could also do maybe some like gimmick stuff where you want to play Nico like off to the side, or like, you know, like trap her in the corner, keep her alive forever. But chances are you're going to try and make like a 3-star Nico, and then you can use this as a stabilization point if you field 2 2-star Nikos, which is on your journey to making 3-star Nico. Then you'll eventually get the Nidalee, if that makes sense. Of course, she also has a little bit, she has like, the synergy is there, is what I'm trying to say. Whenever it's mentioning a specific unit, the way you should always think about it is that this unit is kind of tied or hand in hand with the unit that it's mentioning. Lastly, we're going to talk about the really high cap options. These are all the, like, they're all counted here. Some of them are 5 cost, some of them are quote unquote 7 cost. They're all over the place. They're all like supposed to be these really giga high cap, really strong units. A lot of them have individual traits that make them really strong. We introduced a lot of them yesterday, but here we're just going to focus a little bit more on the unlock conditions for it. So we'll start with Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench spend 500 silver serpents. So silver serpents is the Bilgewater currency. So with the Bilgewater trait, let me just try and find it to highlight it for you guys. Right, with the Bilgewater traits, you're gaining these silver serpents with takedowns, and these silver serpents like a currency for the trait, similar to how Shadow Isles gets a currency, but this one you're using it to spend on stuff, right? You're getting like extra loot and things like that. So with Tahm Kench, you're trying to spend it, so that means like you earn enough and you're spending it over the course of the game. Eventually you'll unlock the Tahm Kench, which obviously means you have to have a really good Bilgewater spot where you're earning that currency and spending it and winning rounds, because it's more tied to like a win streak kind of trait. Next, we have the T-Hex. The T-Hex is Piltover. You want to have 9 Piltover star levels, and obviously this is going to be like your Giga Kingpin for the Piltover trait, just being like this really, really powerful unit that has like really high cap potential. He also has, by the way, like as his unique trait, we didn't talk about it, but Hexmex. Talked about it yesterday, but basically it's similar like Mech Pilot. So you want to like feed him a unit, he'll steal some of the HP of the unit, and then also he'll like get some extra stats based on that role, so you can really like rework him to be more of like a tank, be more of like a nuisance in the front line, or be more of a damage dealer by giving him one of the damage style stats, if that makes sense. Next we have Set. So unlock potential is you want to be level 8 and field only 1 unit in the first 2 rows of combat. This does not seem like a very difficult unlock potential in my opinion. Field only 1 unit in the first 2 rows of combat. You basically just solo frontline somebody for 1 fight, being level 8, and bang, you get yourself a Set. I think Set has good potential to just be a really reliable, just like insert frontline unit, because obviously he has the, a self-healing effect where if he drops to a certain amount of HP, he'll basically go off to the side, do a bunch of sit-ups, come back in, the boss, right? So this one I think will also be a really popular choice for a lot of boards, which might make Ionia, or just like splashing in Ionia if it's particularly good Ionia trait in the set, or sorry, if it's a particular good Ionia in the game, because Ionia changes per game, by the way, right? Like each game you have like a different type of Ionia bonus, so if it's a good bonus that can really support the set, I think that'll be a really popular one. Silas. So Silas, like I said, some of these are 7 cost, some of them are 5 cost, so I'm just kind of treating them all in the same boat. Silas I know for sure is a 7 cost because I saw it advertised as such. Silas, you want to sell a 2-star Jarvan, 2-star Garen, and a 2-star Lux. So we expect this unit to be really strong because you're investing basically like 30 plus gold into one unit if you do all of that. Because if we look at it, right, Jarvan, oh wait, no, Jarvan's really cheap. Who's the expensive one? Is it Lux? Lux and the other one? Never mind, it's not 30 gold, it's like 20-ish gold. Yeah, Lux, Garen, and Jarvan would be like your Demacia kind of units, right? When you sell them, it's also very scary because of these Demacian units, if you're playing a Demacia board, Jarvan and Garen have the inter-team synergy of Defender, right? So these are the units that you typically want to have like as your strong and reliable front line. So you're basically completely selling what would be like the cornerstones of your front line, and then also selling the Lux. Now Silas himself also shares the what's it called, the Defender synergy. So what I would always recommend is if you're trying to angle towards Silas, hold on to an extra Jarvan, because then basically you're just like losing the Garen in place of it. Now it is a big investment, obviously, because you're selling 2 star 4 costs, which is around 24 gold, and then plus a 1 cost, which might be hard to find at higher levels. So we're really hoping that the Silas is worth it, if that makes sense. Now obviously if you're in a really good spot where you're really far ahead, you might be able to postpone this and use it as a late game cap. For example, like you can just find a replacement Lux or a replacement Garen and then be able to slot them in or slot them out. Also, this could be good in pivot style boards, right? If you play Demacia or play around a Demacian line for much of the game and then you decide to pivot out of it, you can basically just sell your whole board, pivot to 5 costs, and be like a really high cap late game, because you'll basically have like this unit and maybe some other 5 costs or 7 costs to play around, where you'll just have like a Giga Exodia board. So there's not really a downside to selling the units, right? But that would be like, you know, what I'm trying to say is that you can't just do this on a whim. It's not like on level 8, I don't think it's going to be a situation where like you're level 8, you roll down to 0, you hit 2 stars there and 2 star Lux, you sell them instantly, and then you get Silas next turn, you just win out from that. I think it's going to be more of like, you know, you're playing Demacia trait, you hit your upgrades, and then when you're ready to full pivot your board, or you're ready to like accept the Silas by having replacements of the units, then you kind of interchange it in. I think that's the way I interpret it, or the style of gameplay I would play with it. Next we have Ziggs, Vila, Yordle, or Zonnet with 3 items and level 9. So being level 9, and then you're playing either Yordle or Zon, basically being a high cap version of that. You're going to have 3 items on them anyways, so the main unlock is usually going to be making it to level 9 in this case. We talked about Zahin, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to say Zahin and see how it goes. But basically this is like an upgraded Xin Zhao. 7 cost, really strong, just does insane things, like massive damage, has like an ability that reads like fucking relinquished here. Like, I don't know what this is. It's like 100 paragraphs. Also, I keep saying that joke. I don't know. I was sorting through some old Yu-Gi-Oh cards a while ago, and now it's just stuck in my head because I was laughing at how fucking ridiculous the text is on that. It's like, it's not even readable. Like, if anybody ever owned the card, it's like you can't even see it. Anyways, but with this, you need the Xin Zhao champion augment, and you have to hit the 3-star Xin Zhao. So it's more tied towards like a high cap version of that specific hero augment, which may or may not be its own thing, like strong or whatever. So, you know, of course, that's like, it's a very specific thing. This is not a unit you're gonna play every game or often. It's gonna be something like, if I have the Xin Zhao hero augment, this is like my end goal for that. We have another Shurima unit, Xerath. 5 cost, this one you have to alternate win or losing, and you need the Azir. So once again, these are like really high cap units, really high cap board, also a little bit of risk of getting them all in, but of course you need to unlock them, you need to have the Azir in the first place. So I think it's more tied towards like getting to level 9 or getting to those 5 costs early enough in the game such that you can actually do this win-lose streak and activate the unit. Next we have Volibear. Volibear is Fairlord, level 8, and have a unit with 3,800 health. This seems pretty reliable if you're playing around a bruiser style board where they all scale their HP pretty high. Shouldn't be a difficult unlock condition. And then also, Volibear being a bruiser allows you to basically slot in a much more powerful version of one of your units anyways. So I think Volibear is going to be super common, super good, so long as Bruiser is good. Because if Bruiser is strong enough that you could play around like either 4 or 6 Bruiser front lines, I think Volibear is going to be a great, amazing unit to put in. Also, scales with HP damage, and also does like, it has an insane amount of stuffs that he does, right? Does extra physical damage, activates Stormbringer, then he summons Lightning Bolt, he scales off AP, scales off AD. I feel like this is going to be a unit that's going to have a lot of different applicability and itemizations, and also the unlock conditions make a lot of sense with a board that would pretty easily support around the Volibear in my opinion. We'll go over Thresh. Thresh is easy. Collect 150 souls. Another Shadow Isles unit where you're collecting souls, and then scales off those souls as well. So similar, like I said, I think the Shadow Isles trait, this one's going to be one that I'm probably going to be, like, we'll see how it plays out, but I think it's going to be more of, like, the beginner, easy to play kind of trait, right? If you have the Viego early, you just collect your souls, end goal is really simple, right? If you just keep collecting the souls, eventually I make it to a Thresh. And every stage along the way, the more souls I collect, the stronger my units get. Seems like a very clear-cut thing. Of course, we don't know how powerful Thresh is. By the time you get Thresh, if he's strong enough with the souls that he has, you might be able to pivot out of Shadow Isles. Just keep 2 Shadow Isle active, because you can keep it pretty low, and then just have Thresh plus 1 unit and pivot to a much stronger board. There is that potential. I think that a lot of people are going to be trying to get these capped boards where you're getting all of these crazy powerful unlock units and just trying to make like an amalgamation or a 5-cost soup. So Thresh, we'll see how dependent he is on those souls and if scaling the souls is going to matter a lot more, because it does seem like good, right? Each second deal X amount of damage within 2 hexes, so basically like his AoE is going to get stronger and stronger as you keep Shadow Isles in. So I feel like he's more tied towards that trait, but we'll see how important that part of his kit is relative to his active. Next we have Aatrox. Aatrox also seems like a pretty coherent and clear-cut unit to me, right? Unlock potential, field a unit with 40% Omnivamp and level 8. Now 40% Omnivamp might seem crazy, but Slayers, which is the trait that he has, give Omnivamp. So with Slayer, even with a 2 Slayer synergy, you're getting 10% Omnivamp. What that means, you basically just have to build 2 Omnivamp items. Bloodthirster and Hodge plus the Slayer trait will activate the conditions for Aatrox. And you might look at it and be like, well, now I'm building a lot of Omnivamp, isn't that bad? I remember we were talking about it a little bit before with Vigar when I was mentioning it, where I was saying, like, you know, building a lot of AP, this one might be a little bit confusing for me. I don't see the vision just yet with the unit. But with Aatrox, I see the vision because Aatrox has insane potential based on his synergies, right? With Aatrox, he has, excuse me, I'm trying to find it. World Ender, I believe it's called. Yeah, here we go. Aatrox gains attack damage equal to his Omnivamp, and then he also revives himself on first death. So you have a unit that is a melee carry that you give Omnivamp to, which helps their survivability. So giving more Omnivamp isn't necessarily bad, but then also he scales that Omnivamp into base AD. So you're gonna have a unit that has an insane amount of base AD with this insane amount of Omnivamp, and has a revive and gets extra durability on that revive. This is going to be a nuisance if anything, right? You can build this like a pure drain tank where it's just going to be impossible to kill, and then by the time you kill him, he revives and he's going to be impossible to kill version 2. Also, if you're playing around a Slayer board, this seems like, you know, with 2 Slayer, you can just easily just slot him in and just have like this nuisance frontline unit to kind of do a lot of stuff. Darken also gives Omnivamp, so, you know, of course, if you're playing around Aatrox, you might be able to split your Omnivamp eventually, right? You might be able to, you know, too much Omnivamp might be too much, but then you can kind of maybe play around 2 different Slayer units, right? I know Yone's a separate unlock condition, but I mean is you can split the items up, give, like, you know, get the unlock condition first, then you could build Omnivamp and have like a dual melee style carry build with him. I think that's going to be like the intentional, like, final boss level state of this unit. But then also just seems like he does a lot of damage. It seems like he, like, low mana threshold, and then obviously with Darken, with his trait World Ender, he reduces maximum mana by 20. So this guy's gonna be like instant casting on his second revive and just being like absolutely like demon like. I like, you know, 10 mana means like every second auto attack, or every, like, you know, depending on what type of mana gen you have, he's gonna be like doing 300 damage, right? With slashes and swipes and whatever. Like, I feel like that's a lot of damage output with a kit that kind of scales really well with that. So we'll see. But that seems like a unit that seems like, at least to me, I feel like that's going to be a popular choice for me as long as the unit actually functions well. Because just playing around that, it seems like something you could stabilize around just because of the revive effects with the damage scaling that he gets. Next we have Aurelian Soul. Field 5, Targon 5 in combat. Aurelian Soul is supposed to be really strong. He also scales, so if you try and hit him earlier rather than later, that's going to make a lot of sense. But Targon, there's some of the unlocks for the Targon units, which we saw before with Diana. You really need to be playing Targon, right? You have to have Targon units, and then the Targon units kind of play off of each other. So this might be a little bit tied towards the trait, but of course, once you unlock him, he doesn't necessarily need Targon active anymore, so you can just like play him and have him scale, right? And obviously, if you reach like this Giga scaling, the earlier you find him, there's also some win conditions just based on the Aurelian Soul scaling, because he's a scaling unit. Next, we have Baron Nashor. This one's going to be one of those, this one I think is a 7 cost. It's just like really, really strong high cap. The idea with Baron Nashor, level 10 and Void 7. So you have to have all the Void active. It's pretty difficult. I think Void, there's not even 7 Void units, if I'm not mistaken. Wait, are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, no, there are 7, right? But it's just like a little bit awkward because you need to unlock all the Void units. So this is kind of like you're playing Vertical Void, then you eventually play him. He has like some interesting synergies as well, right? He counts as 2 units, right? He takes up 2 team slots, but then he adds a +2 to the Void trait, so it allows you to like rearrange your board a little bit, right? You can drop some units, you'll have a free extra unit because he takes up 2 slots and then removes a spot, which is pretty nice. But either way, does a shit ton of damage. Has like all this insane stuff. He summons like, makes a void thing on the whole board. This is one of the units that if you can make it here, this is probably like a win condition or a game winning spot. Not necessarily like, you know, something that you need to like, not something that you're gonna hit every game, right? Make it to level 7, make it to level 10 while playing all of the other units and having the associated items for them. It's gonna be a little bit awkward. It's not gonna be like an every game type of situation. Next we have Brock. So this is collect 500 Ixtal clues. So we talked about Ixtal a little bit, but Ixtal, the main trait, that the way it works is like you collect these things. You have like these mini like side missions, kind of like to me it kind of reminds me like a little bit of like a Mario Party mini game in the middle of stuff, right? Like you have like little missions and stuff, and you earn these Ixtal clues. This is like the final boss. This is like a Giga Golem, right? That's the way you should look at it. I think also in that 7 cost category, meaning that's like much stronger than a 5 cost. Like it's just like one of those giga units you can play. Then we have Galio, 12-star levels of Demacia. So if you're playing around Demacia, this is like your final boss of Demacia. And then we have Mel, 2-star Mbessa with 1 item dies. So basically like a little bit of like a nod to like, you know, the show and whatever. But with 2-star Mbessa, that means you're probably like rolling and playing around Noxious or Quick. I think she's a Quick Striker. She was a Quick Striker in the past. I should double check for you guys just so I don't. Mbessa, what is she this time around? No, she's a Vanquisher actually. My bad. So Mbessa Vanquisher, so you're probably playing around one of those lines, Noxious or Vanquisher. And then the Mel, Noxious Disruptor. She doesn't seem like she necessarily fits in really nicely, so I feel like you'd be wanting to play this more as like a Noxious situation. But of course it might be like a get Mel and then pivot into like a full Disruptor board. And then finally we have Rise. Rise, field 4 region traits together in combat. This one's probably going to be a little bit of like a team planner situation where there's going to be a particular board that makes sense in order to fit all the regions in. But basically, he has different effects based on like what type of region he gets activated, if I'm not mistaken. So he also has this Rune Mage where he gets active region traits that modify his ability. Stuff like, you know, Void, where he'll get like Shred Sunder, I believe. Frail Lord, he gets Chill, etc. So obviously, he's going to be more of a flexible option that based on whatever regions that you're trying to play. If you have like an amalgamation of like a lot of really expensive or powerful units and you activate a bunch of traits, Rise basically can become like a Giga Boss, just having like a bunch of extra bonuses, basically applying all of those traits to himself. But anyways, those are all the unlock conditions. Those are all the unlockable units. I talked a little bit about them, just early glances. Of course, I don't have hands-on experience playing the set yet, but I will have that tomorrow because tomorrow is going to be PvE. So I will try and do viewer lobbies. I'm going to try and set up, I've been trying to do it today, to set up simul streaming on YouTube and Twitch. I might have to decrease the quality because my internet will probably blow up, but we're going to try and make it like a little bit more publicized with the streaming. I want to make that a little bit of my goal, to make it a little bit more widespread for me, like give it a good effort this set. And then also obviously viewer lobbies, because like, you know, if I'm playing with like the randos in PvE, a lot of times it's very frustrating for me especially. So, you know, if you, no matter what your rank is or anything, if you just want to play around, experiment, try stuff out, that's what we'll be doing, and we'll probably be doing that up until the set launches. I'll make more publicized posts about it in my Discord as well as on the YouTube. Tomorrow might be a little bit of a shit show because obviously it's going to be the first day of me trying out all of these things at once while the set's launching, and you have to do like waiting in queue and everybody's probably going to be playing it. But as the weeks progress, like hopefully it will be a little bit more clear, and then I can like make a proper schedule in terms of like timings and stuff like that if people want to show up. But either way, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was informative. Hopefully I gave you a little bit of an introduction of the units as well as like my own 2 cents talking about each of them and some of the traits and some of the other stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See ya. Bye bye.